as we saw, proposals to build on top of the Sunnyside yards literally go back 95 years. It's almost 100 years now. But the engineering problems, the fiscal challenges, and most of all, I think the sort of political kind of jurisdictional fights over all of the different players are what have kept it from moving forward. Is that about right?
Yeah, I mean, those are the ingredients that have caused it to be a very difficult cake to build, if that's the analogy. I think on the other hand, as we have learned over time how to build over active rail yards, right? We have that experience now. Technology has advanced from 95 years ago. And the rail operators themselves understand, I think, more and more why this is something they should be spending time on and actually trying to help move forward rather than just see it as their yard and their yard only, right? Which has essentially just been a gash in the middle of the borough.
When you were doing the feasibility study for Mayor de Blasio, was there an option to come back and say, you know what, I don't think this is going to work? Or was it more like, clearly he wants it to happen, so you have to try and show him how it could be done?
I think you raised an interesting point. I mean, is there too much like you're out of the gate already with the idea? I think we had a very genuine discussion about what were the engineering and sort of political and financial challenges of taking on a project of this size, particularly if you remember in light of it was really coming off of Hudson Yards becoming a thing. And for all of the pros and cons of Hudson Yards, I think that we in the de Blasio administration felt very strongly that we wanted to design a project at scale that would be more human, that would really resonate with what New Yorkers wanted, that could connect neighborhoods, that could provide real affordable housing and schools and culture and education. And so in a way, it was a little bit of a petri dish for everything that we were trying to do there. And I would always caveat, but we can't do this unless the market is strong and or there's a huge public sector investment. And we need the cooperation of a lot of different players. So it was always going to be complicated. And then, of course, the arrival of Donald Trump won, and then, of course, COVID. Right? These are things you can't necessarily control.
Right. Well, yeah, right. You spent many years on the proposal, and it was hundreds of pages, and it was very interesting, and it came out in March of 2020, and a couple of weeks later.
Correct. And the politics, obviously, were changing very radically at that time. When you think about it now, which is why I think it's so interesting and exciting that the mayor has brought it back on the table. At the time, there was also a lot of sort of more generalized NIMBY distrust of development. The Amazon headquarters had just sort of become very much a controversial project just a few neighborhoods away. And I think that it just was very difficult for people to really believe that we could deliver on a project that would serve all New Yorkers.
Was there a scenario, or is there a scenario in which it could be scaled down, meaning just a portion of the yards as opposed to the whole 182 acres?
Yeah, I mean, no matter what happens, even if they're able to, quote, pull this off, it would be phased, right? It is an active rail yard, and that is the number one thing to make sure transportation is going in and out of the city, because it serves New Yorkers and people across the region. There are definitely ways in which pieces of the yard that are more close to grade, and or when you think about the neighborhoods that are adjacent, you know, Long Island City has already developed unbelievably in the past decade. So to imagine a continuation of that kind of housing and mixed-use development on that side of the yard is very easy. I think when you start thinking about doing the whole yard, it really is a master planning exercise that's going to require a lot of input. But it is one of the rare options for the city to really say, do we want to do home ownership? Do we want to do mixed income housing? What are the real pieces of what makes a new neighborhood for the 21st century? Family housing. Why don't we prioritize families?
Well, but you know, when it comes to the expense, I mean, it was notable to me. I think the final number on the plan that you completed in 2020 was something in the area of $14 billion. Mamdani is asking the president for $21 billion, which, by the way, comes out to $1.75 million per unit. Yeah, that seems a little rich. But I mean, there are other ways to develop affordable housing if you're talking about tens of billions of dollars, right?
Sure. I think that number is a very crass and sort of gross number. I mean, there's the number that it's going to cost to actually do the infrastructure, right? To make the site developable. And then what goes on above it should be a combination of private investment and public sector investment, right? I mean, I personally don't think that it should be 100% affordable housing. I think we have a unique opportunity to do a real mixed income community and mixed home ownership, which is an increasingly important piece of the puzzle, particularly for working class communities in Queens. And I think mixed income housing continues to be the right, more long-term sustainable model so that we don't continue to have to keep paying the bill for all of these low-income units, and families have better outcomes. So depending on what the programming mix is, we'll know what the bill is. But it is absolutely clear that there's no private sector solution to just building an enormous and very complex platform over this site, unlike Hudson Yards, which, by the way, also had tremendous public support, just not as overt as saying to the President of the United States, I'd like you to write me a check.
Right, right. Well, Hudson Yards and even like Atlantic Yards in Brooklyn, I mean, these are similar conceptually at least.
Sure.
And, deck over the rail yards and let's build some stuff
Yeah.
there. And in both cases, they've had enormous controversy, in part because it ends up costing so much more than what was originally projected, right? So,
Well, time is money.
Well, but is this, I mean, yeah, right, but
Right.
time is also where you get consensus,
Right.
right? So
Well, that's why I'm hoping this might be a little bit different, right? I'm actually going to be an optimist here because I think that the work that we did, 7, 8 years ago is solid work. And I've noticed already in the chatter that some of the folks who were like already very skeptical of the plan at the time are getting on board and saying, no, actually, this is an interesting opportunity for us to do something at scale and to do it in partnership with community. That already is completely different sort of zeitgeist than it was when we started to take on this in 2016 or 2015. So I think that we may not have, a lot of times plans get shelved and you have to start again. I don't think that's the case. I think that there's real willingness now by the city and by stakeholders and by other politicians to sit down and say, you know what, this plan was actually not a bad idea. How do we want to tweak it now to sort of amend some of our priorities? But also we need to get going because if we can make a deal with the federal government to finance some portion of the infrastructure, let me tell you something from Gateway, get that agreement signed.
Right. Get the check and cash it quickly. Right?
You want those agreements signed because then ultimately they will be enforceable.
How is Gateway looking, by the way?
Well, it's been, as we say, sort of up and down, but the good news is our legal strategy did pay off and we received a fair amount of our money back and we were able to put all 1,000 workers back on the job. Because at the end of the day, this project was not just theoretical anymore. There were 1,000 people building this project who were putting food on the table for their kids. And we're back. It's not over yet. We're going to have to keep struggling and he's a mercurial guy. So it's going to get bumpy.
All right, yeah, move quick while you
Exactly,
while you've got the
that's my
opportunity.
advice.
Thanks so much for this
Thank
perspective.
you.
Great talking with
Okay.
you.